your name. You lift me up. You lift me up. Let's sing. Unfailing love, stronger than mountains.
Well, a pleasant good morning and welcome to the CCG Hour. It is, you should be able to say it with me by now, a great day to be alive. Anyhow, I do trust that all is well with you and yours. And of course, that even though it's raining outside, that it is indeed a great day to be alive. So I just want to say a special good morning to those who always listen or look at this program. You doing that and letting me know that you do that, it's a real encouragement, right? So continue to do so. And more than just looking at it, apply whatever principles that we would, release to you that you find or you can really, connect with, then please do that. Anyhow, I have a packed morning and I have Reverend Nigel Lindsay with me this morning. Again, he is not going to be walking. Reverend, good morning.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
Yes, and it is great to have you.
To all your viewers and your listeners.
Mm-hmm. I find you look very comfortable now. You look like you're settled on this program.
I enjoy coming. It's great to have the opportunity to chat, really.
Yeah. And it's really good to have you. And of course, today we're talking about something completely different because the last, twice you've come actually. Yes, we spoke about the endeavor that you had and then, of course, how it went, which we are really grateful to God for how all of that turned out. Okay. But of course, in our discussing, I came to know that there is much more to you than just walking and raising what it causes.
Okay, yeah.
I'm really happy to that we can talk about mental health this morning, which is what we are going to be talking about. We will be starting, I don't know if I want to call it a series, but I will have not only Reverend Nigel here with me. I have there are two other persons who have also, and of course they will take it from a whole different angle. But I do believe that mental health is not just as a current topic, it's more than just being a current topic. It is very necessary, yes. And when I discovered that Nigel has been working for, he will tell us how long, but have been working in that as a social worker for a lot of years, as well as with children. And my goodness, let me not be so general. There are lots of complaints about what's happening with our young people and just people on the whole. And I am one who always says, what's the point of just complaining if you're not going to do something about it? So we have decided as a CCG, here on the CCG Hour, how about if we use the expertise we have right here on the CCG and begin to talk to issues and bring strategies, bring encouragement that will be able to assist. You may not have a child right now. Maybe your children are all grown up, but you have the grand, or you have a little one that comes next to you, or whatever is the contact you have with children. And it's not that we are going to be talking about children only, but we are going to spend some time there. So that's just a little overview of what we'll be doing. It's really necessary. We will be looking at mental health in itself, just what it is, and because we're not in a hurry, Nigel, we're not in a hurry, because even if we're not finished today, thank God we have been blessed with this program that we can do it, we can just continue, another time. It is really a serious issue. It is something that this whole concept and just the whole idea of mental health and all that goes with it has always been an issue to me. It's not a pet peeve, but it is certainly something that I hold very near because I've seen the issues that reside. So I'm doing all the talking now so that I can hush and allow Nigel to go from there. So firstly, though, tell us about your involvement with mental health and social work and so forth, just to set the the groundwork for that.
Some background. So I started my career started in catering. which has nothing to do with mental health, probably, apart from
Wait, catering.
hotel and catering management.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then that makes me think about the conversation we were having just before we started the program. I shouldn't be offering you any help. I should be coming to learn.
So I started in catering, but what happens there is you get lots of people. So at one stage I was a bars manager, and lots of people pulling into the bar, and they sit and try and put the worlds to rights and talk about everything, but go away and come back the next day and do the same. But they don't actually do anything about it. And my direction moved to wanting to do more social work type stuff. So I started working. To start with, I worked for the Church of England Children's Society in Balham in London in a therapeutic project for emotionally damaged children.
Wow.
So that was quite hard going, but it was a residential, so children who weren't able to continue to be with their parents. So,
wow.
So,
because of trauma and so forth?
Because of trauma, because of parents not really being able to cope with behaviour, or maybe they just weren't in the right place at the time to look after their children.
Right.
So working with that. And then I went off and qualified as a social worker so I qualified in '86 as a social worker. So since then, I've worked.
That's a long day.
It's quite a long time, isn't it? I'm pretty old.
Well, you don't look it.
So since then, I've worked with a variety of different roles, really. As a social worker, a field social worker, I've worked in a family centre with doing assessments for families where their children may have been taken away and they wanted the children back, and supporting parents to get their children back, having to go to court sometimes and speak there. I've also managed a school inclusion project, so working with schools to keep children in school who may be excluded because of behaviour issues. Working with families at home, working with the children in the school, working with the teachers about different strategies they might put into place. I've worked a little bit with adults who have children with additional needs, helping to support them at various stages. And I've also worked as a primary mental health worker with child and adolescent mental health services on 2 separate occasions. So the roles were a bit different in that. Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's comprehensive. No, but that's good. So so you're coming, and we're not just talking here now of the qualification, and I'm glad that you didn't say, well, I have a certificate in this or that, but instead you said, I have worked with, because we're looking for the practical application of whatever it is. Because, I mean, there are so many people having a whole lot of degrees these days, but we're not, and that's the sad truth, but it is a reality. We're not seeing the application. Yes, you have the PhD and you're a doctor, whatever, but where is the work that goes with it? Where is the success rate that goes with the fact that you have this degree? So, because you have been working in mental health generally, what would you say is mental health? I'm very eager to get there, because I know people we have a lot of concepts concerning this. What is it?
Well, we all have health. And we all have mental health. So all of us are having some kind of mental health all the time. Sometimes our mental health, it kind of hinders us. It will get in the way of some of the things that we want to do on a daily basis. It may prevent us from doing something. And for a period of time, that may happen. A bit like you break your leg for a period of time and then it gets recovered.
Right.
The thing is that when you break your leg or break your arm, people give you lots of sympathy. Sometimes, often they give you sympathy.
Generally, you do get some sympathy.
And you can physically see it.
Yes.
And people kind of respond in that way. But when people have, when things are slightly broken for their mental health, then you can't always see it in the same way. And people are almost like squash them out. They don't want to listen to them. They just ignore them or treat them in really badly. And that happens in quite a lot of places. Every day for many people.
Let's don't go too fast from that concept, though. Because I believe that is the issue right there. When we think of mental health, a lot of people do not just see it as health, and that, well, it's your health, and you can't when we think in health, you can't think of your eye, your hair, your foot, every other part of your body, and ignore your brain, and not just the brain, the physical, but ignore the psychological and the emotional and the social and all of that. And I think that is what happens. We tend to separate health, and say, all right, well, health, but when we think health, we're not thinking the mind.
No.
So I think that is where the issue begins. So if we have to define mental health, how would you define that?
I would say that I would say there's to have a mental health challenge maybe is a good word.
Yes.
It could be that it's something that happens because we inherit that from our family, from our background. So there may be something that is part of our makeup from our parents that we inherit, which has an effect on our mental health.
Okay.
But also there's environmental factors. You know, there's things that happen to us every day. And we, as we grow up, we become resilient to some of those things. We develop a resilience to work some of those things through. And some people maybe are slightly less resilient, and some people are more resilient, and some people have horrendous situations they have to go through, and that has a massive impact on them.
Right.
We also know that sometimes people choose to use substances, which then does, for some people, it doesn't have a big effect, but for some people, it has a massive effect.
Yes.
So some of those substances interfere with our mental health and our understanding as well. So it's kind of a mix of a whole load of things.
Yeah, so it's not just one definition, the way I can ask you to define, I don't know, say what a cup is. We can't just give it like that, because it does have so many other factors that has to come into play.
And you need somebody, you need somebody who's very learned and very qualified to make that diagnosis.
Well, actually, I deliberately asked you for the definition, not so much to pin you to give me one, but to bring the point that we can try to define it. And because it is so broad and so varied and it encompasses so many aspects, that if we try to define it, we may end up in trouble, because there are some people who, as you live, that's basically it. But sometimes we try, of course, to get a whole big term, and then it really does not work.
It's in some ways it's a spectrum, isn't it? So I've worked with children and adults who are on the autistic spectrum, and you will, so I've been with children who have no verbal communication.
Right.
They will be sitting, rocking in their chairs, and they're at one end of the autistic spectrum. At the other end of the autistic spectrum, you have people who have Asperger's syndrome, which is another element of that, who are very, very bright, very able to do things. So for instance, on TV, there's young Sheldon, and Sheldon, some people may have seen that film, maybe not you haven't. Okay.
I haven't.
Okay. Well, so he's very bright, very intelligent, very focused, and some people at one end of the spectrum can be really focused and very bright and very clever. The Good Doctor is another issue. The guy there is autistic, but Asperger's syndrome, so he's very bright, but he's not so good at the communication,
right?
Communicating with people and understanding people's feelings. So he kind of says it as it is,
right?
So there's those. Some people may have seen those plays on TV.
I will definitely look into it. Right.
So it's like a spectrum, a whole load of things, and some children will be very focused on the autistic spectrum, and the same with our mental health.
Right.
So some people will have sort of some slight issues which they need to sort with and deal with, and other people will need a lot of help, and they might need some medication, they might need a psychiatrist to see them regularly and talking therapies and all
Yeah,
sorts of things
yeah, yeah.
in order for them to be able to cope with life.
But would you say that for those of us, and I'm just saying those of us, whoever the us might be, even if I fit or don't fit, but for those of us who may be very resilient to whatever is, life is throwing at you, would you say that we are, I don't want to use the word learned enough, but for want of a better term, learned enough to really be able to deal with the individuals around us, especially our family members, maybe our spouses, our friends, our co-workers, who may not be as resilient as us? Because I find, okay, if something happens, so right now I have this cup of hot tea, and my threshold for heat, I cannot stand anything slightly, even close to lukewarm. It has to be hot.
Okay.
No, but somebody else, the thought of it being so hot, that is going to literally scare them.
Yeah.
And I might have this thing where, what are you talking about? Come on, it's hot tea. Tea must be hot. And I would have that attitude that goes with it. How do we deal with that though? Is that too part of our whole mental health? The one that is able to, let's say, maybe take much heat or whatever, and then the one,
I think God's made us all unique and different. And we are all kind of very special, and we all have our own kind of, and we learn, don't we, within families, we learn within groups of people to cope with each other's different types of behaviour, but some can be more challenging than others. But I suppose it's just understanding that and then trying to respond in a more appropriate way rather than just kind of criticising them.
So then maybe in our talks, when as we go along, we will definitely have to not just give encouragement and counsel to those who may have, mental health challenges of whatever they might be, but also to the persons who feel they don't have them, or at least not as, to be able to deal with people, because I believe that has a lot to do with it. You will hear people saying things that are, oh, you're too weak. You're too weak. You need to do better than that. Come on, get up and you hear in Grenada, you hear people saying things like, come on, you need to get up and get. You playing the fool. You need to do better than that. But the truth is, some of the people that we might be telling these things to really need help.
Yeah. And I think we need to be empowered to do that. So on Tuesday and Wednesday, I was running some workshops for primary school children going from primary to secondary school, transition. And one of the things I was talking about in that was, you may be settling in really fine. You might be really good at making friends, but maybe when you go to secondary school, could you look out for somebody who's struggling with that and needs some help to do that? And maybe there's things that you can learn. So even if this doesn't apply to you, so we're going to do some stuff around worry and anxiety. We're going to do some stuff around bullying in the next session next week. So if you know about that, you can support somebody else. And peer mentoring and just building up young people so that they're able to support other young people is a good way forward, given the fact that we can never afford to have counsellors on every corner and mental health workers on every corner. We need to empower our people in our communities to be able to respond more appropriately and more sympathetically to those people that have challenges at the time, I think.
Okay, so what are some of the when we're talking mental health challenges, what are some of the, I don't want to use the phrase more common, but for want of a better term, what are some of the things that you have seen that tend to be seen or tend to be identified quickly as mental health challenges?
So one potentially could be the whole idea of worry, which then leads on potentially to anxiety and anxiety disorders. So where people become slightly worried about something, and then that worry grows to the extent that they can't can't face it. So I've worked, for instance, with young people who can't leave the house because they're too scared to go out of the house because something scared them at one stage.
Yeah.
And so on that basis, you need to kind of think about steps to get to the stage where they can get out. So going out with somebody, maybe looking at people being outside houses on the television to start with, just very, very simple steps for people to get from there to where they're aiming to get to, and having help and encouragement and achievement when you achieve those things.
Go back to worry.
Yeah.
We usually say it, and everybody says that. You and I are chatting about, I don't know, whatever, and we would just casually say, oh, don't worry about it, stop worrying about that. We say it, say it, and many times I'm sure the people who are saying don't worry, they worry what's anyway.
Yeah.
But it's not so much what will cause worry, because most of the times people worry about what they can't control anyhow.
Yeah.
But what will cause the worry to, or at which point you would notice, for many people out there, the worry turning into anxiety?
I think the worry turning into anxiety is when it kind of stops your daily life. So generally we all worry about certain
at least
things.
Something, even getting on the bus. Just generally.
It stops you from leaving your house, or it stops you from getting a job, or stops you from getting. It prevents you your normal lifestyle. Then that's kind of becomes a bit like an anxiety, isn't it? It's a bit like something that is a bit more than worry, and sometimes you need some help to deal with that or to cope with that. Somebody helping you to do that. People will say, don't worry about it, just go out and do it. And that's not always possible for people, because they've got to a stage where they're so concerned about it. So it's about trying to, so for instance, I can remember seeing a young girl at school, and she came in without her tie one day to school, and she's so worried that she was going to get into mega trouble at school about it. So we kind of just talked about strategies. Well, maybe you could go to the office and see if they've got any spare ties.
Right.
Would this happen again? When people get into trouble, is it usually first thing in the morning, and you're already here you've already been here for a bit of time? So just trying to knock down some of the fears that are there.
But maybe that is the underlying thing. Worry is triggered by something. Most of the time it's triggered by fear.
Yeah.
So it's dealing with the fear. But then if it is, okay, you have adults. Well, whether it's adults or not, but you have people, my goodness, that worry.
Yeah.
I think they've gotten degrees in this thing. Because we are on worry, and we don't want it to reach to the point of anxiety, how or what are some strategies that you can, even though we're not into strategies per se as yet, but because we're just talking worry here,
okay.
and it's just so common.
Okay.
What are some practical things that we can...
Okay, so there's a book that I'm going to be reading for the young people, which is called Big Bag of Worries. And it's about this little girl who has a bag of worries, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, this bag, and she doesn't want to open it because she's fearful that if she opens it, all these worries will jump out and be too engrossing her. And it follows her to school, and it follows her everywhere, and she just doesn't feel she can talk to anybody about it, so she doesn't talk to her mum because her mum's too busy, and her mum says, oh, you haven't got any worries, you're a little girl, you're okay. And her dad's too busy, and her brother is too busy with his computer or his Game Boy or whatever. And so she just doesn't do anything until one day she wakes up in the morning, and she goes out and sits on the wall and just bursts into tears because she can't cope with this great big bag that she's carrying around. And a nice old lady comes and taps on her shoulder. What are you crying about? And she says, well, there's just too many worries. And the lady says, let's open the bag. She says, no, don't open the bag, because if you open the bag, then all the worries will jump out, and it will just be too much. and the lady says, let's do it gently. So she opens the bag and she takes out all the
One
worries,
worry.
one worry at a time. And she says, well, that's something that everybody has. We just put that there. And this is a worry that is not really your worry, it's your mum's worry. You need to give that back to your mum. And this worry we can deal with. We can work out some strategy for dealing with this.
Yes.
And slowly, as she opens the bag, the worries begin to disappear. And she puts them into categories to work out how to move forward. So I love that book.
I'm getting to like it already.
I think it needs to be written in a Grenadian context more.
Definitely,
But it's a lovely book. And so what I do is then I use that, and I've put together, for anger, I've put together a 6 little square design for thinking about how we deal with anger, but I've just put together now something to do with how we deal with worry, and I'm going to do that with a group of children this week.
We leave anger for a whole program.
I'm anger for another program, yes.
No, seriously, anger needs a program all by itself. For real, we need it. We definitely
because there's a whole lot
need
of stuff around with anger. There's a whole lot of stuff with people's aggression and passiveness and passive aggressiveness.
What's really triggering it?
And all of that. Yes,
we will take seriously, but we need to. But we will, and we will. Because it has gone. Worry and every other thing. Because I mean, look, we only mentioned worry. But it's gone past where you tell people don't worry or stop getting angry so quickly. We say these things, but the reality is that we do not give people methodology. How do I not worry? I remember somebody literally asking me that question. I was in a counseling and they were, some years ago, and they were like, but Pastor, I know I shouldn't. And that's how actually they started the conversation. I know I shouldn't be worrying, but I'm worrying. What can I do? And, and we had to, I didn't use the word categorizing, but we had to break it down. I'm like, here what? Stop thinking about all the worries all at once. Let's begin to see what's the first thing that is bothering you so much that you figure there is no way you can fix it. And then, we started to break it down and separate.
So what we would do would be to imagine this bag of worries and just write down, or try and write down, all of the worries that are in this bag. And then trying to categorize them into, these are worries that I can, that I can't do anything about. There are things like world worries, world peace and all of those kinds of things. And I can't really do anything very much about it other than pray about it. And then there's other worries which I can deal with. So look at the ones that you can deal with, and the ones that belong to somebody else. So just trying to put them into. So
let's go back to those categories, because I'm thinking this is something that people can practically do home right now. So if you have a bag of worries, or maybe in your case you have more than a bag, maybe you just walk around with a truckload.
Truckload, yes.
Let's Nigel, go back again. Let's categorize. So you can grab a pen and paper, because we are not here to just chat, because it's a good day to do that. We really want to help you, and I'm glad that we unworry you. As we already said, we are not in a hurry. So that was me talking for you to grab the pen. So I'm taking it that you got it by now. Great. Go back to the categories.
So one category could be that you can't do anything about it. So you physically can't do anything. It could be to do with a national issue, it could be to do with an international issue, something you can't do. Then so put things into that category, and then you need to leave that to somebody else. You need to pray about that maybe, but you can't really do very much about it. Another category could be things that you can do something about. So things that are affecting you and you want to deal with, or you prioritise which ones you want to deal with first. So don't tackle them all at once. It's an important stage. So, and another category could be those things that belong to somebody else. They're not really things that you need to deal with. and sometimes people put burdens on us of things that don't really need to be there. Then there may be a category of things that everybody would worry about, like, I don't know, not catching the bus on time, or something.
Yeah.
You know, so some of those things,
basic life things,
which may be kind of we might be quite worried about, but are things that are just everyday life situations. And then try to identify which one do you want to tackle first. And maybe it might be good to tackle one that's reasonably easy to do, because then once you've tackled one, you feel like you've got the energy to tackle the next one. And then maybe break that down into smaller components. So what do I need to get to this stage? What do I need to do to tackle this? So you've got a kind of a bit of a list, and then you can tick them off as you go, the things you've done, and then you can cross off the ones that you're getting rid of. But so doing it with somebody. So I think it's really good to do it with somebody you feel safe with.
Right.
So you may be able to do it yourself, but sometimes it may be that you've got a friend or somebody that you trust that you feel safe with. So one of my pictures on my little scale would be a safe, you know, like a safe, and it's a safe place to discuss it with that person. And then to kind of put it into the categories, which is important. But then to not just stop there. So when you've cleared your bag, don't just leave your bag, just build up the worries again. You want to do it regularly. You want to do it, you know, every week or something. Do a little list or something that you need to tackle, just so that they don't build up to the extent that they feel like it's too
overwhelming
difficult
again.
Again.
Okay, all right. I like that category thing. I want to raise this one because I know that a lot of our audience are, you know, adults. Where would you categorize the worry that a lot of people experience when they deal with their adult children and their spouses?
Yeah, that can be a big challenge.
Because somebody might be listening and they're like, oh, you know, you don't know what I'm going through. You know, people tend to tell us that a lot. You don't know what I'm going through. What I'm going through, it always feels as though you're the only person going through those things. But worrying even about somebody's salvation, you know, whether or not this person or that person's lifestyle, as I said, it could be your spouse or your children. How are we categorizing that one? Is it really your worry? I mean, too.
Well, you kind of think generally that once somebody reaches the age of 18, that they're responsible for themselves. But that doesn't happen for parents, does it? Because their children are always there, and they're going to be wanting the best for them all the way through. Sometimes, because of that personal connection, it can be more difficult, can't it? Because you're kind of, it's easier to do it if you're more detached.
Yes.
So sometimes maybe either talking to, again, a trusted friend, somebody that you feel that's kind of a bit independent, about some strategies that you might be able to put into place, maybe because they can see the picture from outside. Yes. And they can see it in a better way. If it may be good to do that together with you know, maybe if the partner or the young person is happy to do that, that may be quite a good way of kind of trying to identify moving forward. But they may not be. So it's a difficult one, really.
And that's why I raised it. Not so much that we have the full answer to it, because every scenario is so different. But I mean, as a parent myself, and I mean, I have 2 adult children. 3 adult children, 1 turned 18. So now I have 3 adult children. But one of the things I've noticed is that parents love as we love our children. There is this way that we seem to be unable to detach. Almost as though this child's life is still your full and sole responsibility. And I remember, and it's not confidential, though obviously I would not call any name or anything, but I'm just saying it's not a confidential issue. But I remember a parent coming to me at a time. The young man he was 27 at the time, and there was some issues there. But she would come, and as you say, she obviously trusted, you know, me enough to come and complete. But I wasn't the only person she was trusting. But the point is, she would come and speak about the same thing over and over and over. And I would say, the truth is, when I thought I'd heard enough of it, I said, what are you going to do about it? And for her, she's like, well, what can I do? I can't do nothing. I said, all right, well, make up your mind, because if you're going to be talking about this thing over and over and over and over like that, and you know or you think you can't do anything about it, then what exactly are you getting out of this process other than being more worried and harassed? And after some time, a good while, she came back again, and I said, how old is your son? And that is when, that is how I got to know the age at the time. I said, do you think he's old enough to be on his own? That almost shocked her. I'm like, he's 27. If you're going to have this stress, I said it's one thing to support, because I do believe that he needed some physical and financial support to have been able to make that step, and he did. But I said, decide what you're going to do, because the point is that this thing, and I'm talking about something that must have been happening for about 3 or so years, I said, it's not solving the problem. So you will have to make a decision. What is it? I remember looking also at how the thing turned out. The young man is on his own. Ever so often there would be challenges where, as a parent, and you love your child, you would step in, but the reality is that she certainly had much more peace of mind than she had all those years of complaining about the thing that she could not fix. And maybe that is for a lot of people who might be listening, because you're there in the situation, just keep saying, and you're complaining to everybody who would listen. And this is not us, this is not me badgering you and saying, oh, you're from, no, because we understand how much you care for your children. But we are still saying, especially when you are dealing with adults, you really have to know, okay, at which point do I back off?
I think this happens quite a lot with teenagers as they're growing up as well. That suddenly mum realises that she's doing everything for them. She's cleaning their room, she's washing for them, she's washing up, she's cooking, she's doing all of these different things, and yet the young person is supposed to be learning those skills for them to be able to be separating out. And so one of the things I've done with parents in that situation and young people is you kind of almost do a great big sheet of all the things that have to happen in the household. You write it all down everywhere, and then you identify who's doing it, who's doing what. And what we realise is that the adult is often doing everything, and the youngster is doing nothing. And as people grow up, they need to start taking much more of a share in that. It happens with fathers and mothers, husbands and wives. The man is just coming in from work and sitting down and doing nothing, and the woman's doing everything.
And then it becomes a problem in the home.
And then it becomes the relationship issue. So just doing that kind of list, and maybe making it something that happens at different stages, having that conversation. If we were doing, if we're seeing somebody for some counselling or for something, we'd review it every 2-3 months or something to see how that was going, or whether it was working or whether it wasn't working. And it's almost sometimes we need to do that with our families in our family situations. Just review, how's this working? Is this working well, or is it not working well? And also thinking about the dependence, because sometimes whilst the parent may be complaining about the child, what they're doing is because they feel they need to be doing these things because they haven't got their own life. Their parents ended up doing lots of things for the child because it gives them fulfillment. But the child is going to go off somewhere at some stage, hopefully. And so you need to kind of think about, well, what am I going to be doing in the future? What's my new lifestyle after the children have left home? Lots of people have the empty nest syndrome when they go off to university.
And we will definitely have to talk about that. Yeah, because that is an issue as well. Okay, just to bring us back, because you know what brought us there? Worry. And we only mentioned the question was, what are some of the the issues that we might consider the common ones that we consider to be mental health issues, and worry brought us there. You see? And of course we mentioned anger. So at least let's make a quick list, so I'll be quiet.
Okay, so I think some people get eating disorders. So they get sometimes because of worry, I suppose. Sometimes we eat too much or we eat too little, because it kind of makes us feel full and loved and cared for when we're not feeling that maybe. There's depression, which is, but again, is a medical term and should be diagnosed. So some people say, I'm depressed when they've not actually been diagnosed as being depressed. And depression is an element where you feel that you just don't have the energy to do things, and you kind of feel kind of pretty low. There's quite a lot of stuff to do with self-image.
At least it certainly has its roots, some of its roots there.
How you feel, how people speak to you, how people treat you, affects your image and how you feel about yourself. You need to kind of be encouraged and supported. And quite a lot of self-image stuff to do these days with the media. So people see loads of stuff on television, how they should be looking or how they and that kind of has a big impacts, particularly on young people. So there's the kind of those kinds of level. There's issues where, I mean, there are medical conditions, obviously, where people get schizophrenia or they get psychosis and all of those kinds of. But they need to be diagnosed. If people are going down that avenue, they need to be seeing somebody else who can make a proper diagnosis and maybe give the right medication, give the right verbal treatment and all those kinds of things.
As we're talking mental health, and it is a question that I thought about it since at the beginning and did not ask, but I need to raise it. So we've made our list there of the, some of the common things that we would talk about when we're talking mental health issues, but people have a concept. I know it's not everybody, of course, I'm just generalizing here, that when we're talking mental health, we are talking insanity.
Right.
So from the time we started talking about, people would even say it up in your mental, and that is the thing. We have this concept. A lot of people have this concept that from the time we started talking mental health or anything to do with the mind, we're saying that somebody is crazy.
Yeah. No, I think we're wired differently. We're connected differently. We're unique, and we all have different ways of doing things. And yes, some people will need support and to go into special care units at various stages. They may need support with medication to help them through. But generally, most people can cope with those things by using their resilience and be able to move through. And it shouldn't be a big stigma, it shouldn't be a big issue. It shouldn't be, but it is.
But exactly, but it is.
And people get kind of ostracised and pushed out because of it, don't they?
Because I know of, and I'm sure you do too, when once in the community, for example, when someone knows that somebody is on medication, once it relates to something to do with their mental health, they say, "Hey, don't worry, she on medication." But they might even say she on medication. She come out in the pink house because we used to call the mental department the pink house. That's what we call. Actually, that's the building right in Mongia. You must know where it is. But it was painted pink at one point. Okay. So in Grenada, people will say, "Oh, she was in the pink house," or "He was in the pink house," and of course that came with it the whole stigma of being in the pink house. Yeah. And that of course meant everybody in the pink house crazy. Yeah. That is the concept that is there.
It may be for a phase. It may be just a phase somebody's going through,
and that is what is not
perfectly
seen.
Fine afterwards.
But that's the problem and I believe it is. I don't know. I would not be, bold enough to say it's a cultural thing. I don't want to make that type of generalization, but it is certainly partly a cultural thing. Maybe not fully, but partly, where people also think, okay, you've been treated for some kind of mental health issue or challenge, and that's it. You're labeled as crazy or whatever, you're labeled as mental. That's it for the rest of your life. So even if, let's just say, for example, that you would have been known that you were at the Pinkos, that you were treated there, and I bring you here now.
Yeah.
Just the thought of, hey, who Wendy bringing there? Wendy crazy? No, I'm crazy. Wendy crazy, how she could bring this man there? She don't know that a man was in the Pinkos, as though you can't do anything else that is really worthwhile. Well, don't ask for if, let's say, you're a doctor or a lawyer, and then maybe you had a mental challenge and you had to be treated.
Right.
So now you come out, you can't try another case. Well, certainly not if anybody knows.
There's this organisation in the UK which was set up by a guy called, I've forgotten his name now. I haven't got it written down, but basically. He set up an organisation working with teenagers who were in trouble and difficulty, and set up lots of projects going into schools and stuff, and he got awarded, he got an OBE for the work that he was doing. But then what happened for him was that he had some underlying mental health concerns, and then he had to go into hospital to have both his legs broken because they needed to be straightened or sorted out. And in the process, his mental health kind of took a nosedive, and he found it really very difficult. Since then, he's set up a charity called Kasugi Hope, and it's based on this whole idea of kasugi, which is about when you break a pot. So if we broke this cup, it would all be broken. But what the Japanese do is that they repair it by putting silver gold glue around it, and when it's
broken
points, then it all comes together, and it looks more beautiful after it's been broken than it does before it was broken, because it's got all of this gold and silver and stuff around it, and so the whole idea is that when we have a mental health issue, when we're repaired, we are more beautiful. There's more. We've learnt from that experience. We've gained from that experience, and we can move forward. And so what he's doing with lots of churches around the country is they provide training for people in the churches to run 10-week low-level mental health courses, thinking about.
But that is in London.
And, in the UK.
But is that online? Is that something that
some
can
of the
be done
information
online?
is online. So Kasugi Hope is an organisation that you could go and get some information from. And it may be that running that training so that people are empowered. They do it for young people and for adults. So that's a possibility of kind of tapping into that program and
because churches and schools, workplaces, everywhere, I really believe need that, because we do have so many individuals, whether we like it or not. There are people that we just don't know. When we go home and we leave our co-workers, we don't know what that individual is experiencing when he or she goes home. You don't know. We just don't know everybody's business.
I often think about, as you go through a supermarket, you get somebody who's the checkout, and they're doing the checkout, and sometimes people think, they're being a bit rude to us or whatever. But the way that people treat people as they go through, they just treat them like dirt sometimes, and yet that person may have experienced all sorts of things in that day, and then all these different people coming through in a rude way. We really need to just be nice to each other.
I agree. And as you say that, every day, and it came home to me when my father died, just this January gone. But it came on that the day was beautiful.
Right.
The day outside was bright and sunny, and while I was going down behind the ambulance, I noted particularly that everyone was doing their business. But I was driving along with a suitcase about to get my father. He was supposed to be, how do you call that? The word just slipped me there for a moment. Where you go to the ward and then they sign you in to go in the ward. My goodness, the word just left. But anyhow, you know what I mean. By the time he was there waiting, so they just brought him down, and while he's there admitted, while he's there, just waited to be tested and then to be admitted, he's dead. The point I'm making, though, is it was a regular day. Everything is going, I'm sure people were having lunch, who were laughing, everything is going just well and fine. And there's so many people who, when you're having a great day or whatever is the day, somebody's loved one just died. And that person, and the thing is, I'm driving. And I had to drive to come back home. All right? And I'm saying, so that, what if, I was able to do it? Wonderful. But what if that other individual who is so overcome, but they don't have someone else to call and say, hey, drive me home, or I'm going to leave my vehicle there, and that person drives, and that person gives you what we will call in Grenada a bad drive, and we cuss, and we behave, and I really do believe that when we think in mental health, we can't be thinking mental health for our own selves. We definitely have to be thinking mental, we have to. We have to.
No, it's so important. And bereavement is another, so
we have to deal with that again. So now we have about 4 programs separate. We already have 4 programs separate and down.
And I think we have to think about our mental health in a holistic way. So we have to think about our mental health is supported by the food that we eat. Eating good food is so important. And so some people that's difficult, isn't it? Financially, just finding good food to eat. But we live in a country where there's so much abundance of fruits and vegetables and things, and that's good. Good sleep is so important.
But some people would say to you that they can't sleep.
They can't
so
sleep.
That's another story again.
So again, another program for thinking about sleep. But
because the same worry could make them, even if they're eating well, then that's a different story.
But kind of sleep is so important. Good friendships, having friends around that you can speak to and feel you can trust is important. Something to look forward to. Hope, I always kind of think with students who are focusing on doing exams or we're all focusing on, we need to have something to look forward to, something that we're going to go and do in the future, something that kind of helps us to motivate us to move forward. Another one a bit is connecting to other people, feeling that we have done something for somebody else. That can help our mental health as well. Contribution to society is so important. And when people feel like they can't contribute anymore, that's when they kind of, it becomes more difficult for them. But having something to contribute is so important. There's also evidence that if you're part of a church or a part of an organisation, a Christian organisation, that people's life is enhanced because you are engaging in, singing, going along and singing in churches helps your mental health. It helps your ability to be able to move forward. Just associating with other people helps you. Techniques, things that people talk about in sermons can be very helpful. And lots of people have moved away from not going to church and they don't get some of this moral teaching, some of this encouragement, some of this spiritual teaching which helps them to move and be energized really for their general working life.
And that is why it is supposed to be the holistic, because some people are exercising and they are eating well and they have a very good job and they have something to look forward to, but then those same and a lot of money maybe, but that same individual might say, you know what, I have it all, at least I have all that it is said that I should have, and I'm not happy. That same person definitely has issues with their mental health. That person may be the one who might end up committing suicide. And it's not like if they were clinically depressed, maybe, but it's just they did not have anything else to look forward to because they figure that they've accomplished everything already. So you have that whole category of individuals again.
I mean, retirement has an impact, doesn't it? So, when we retire, we think, oh, we're going to be free to do our things. But then some people think, well, what's my purpose anymore? What am I supposed to be there for? And those kinds of things. So having a retirement plan, planning for your retirement, having things to look and be part of in the future is so important, and your contribution can be so useful when people are so busy with work they didn't have time to do some of those things anymore.
So now we have about 6 more programs to go. Because amazingly we did not even take a break, and we actually just have about 2 more minutes for the program.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how 1 hour goes by so quickly, but it goes by quickly here.
Okay, yes, it does, certainly. Yeah.
So definitely, well, I mean, I'm considering this to be just an intro.
Okay.
We are going to, hopefully, God sparing our lives, we will be able to possibly do this, at least once a month, if not twice, but, as the time and the program permits, so that we can take each aspect that we, may have raised here today. We can take each aspect and then go into it. Can definitely grieve, dealing with grief, and that is such a current issue, and some people really don't know how to deal with it.
And it can be to do with death, but it can also be to do with
just loss on the whole.
And lots of, I hear lots of young people whose their parents have gone to live somewhere else, and so they don't have any contact with that parent, and it's almost like it's a massive gap for them in their lives.
So we'll do that. We'll go into each one, but I just want you to share, just before we tie up, that Masuki, you said?
Katsuki. KINTSUGI. Hope is the organisation. There's also things like Mind, which is an organisation. It's a UK organisation, but there probably maybe I did try and see if there was a Mind Grenada, but I couldn't find anything. But they have lots of stuff on mental health. So if you wanted to go onto the internet, there's an A to Z of mental health. And all of the different categories. So if you wanted to find out something a bit about mental health, then that's a good way. And there's also Young Minds as well, which provides, they have you can check in as a young person to get some advice. You can check in as a professional, a teacher or somebody, and you can check in as a parent. And it gives you different bits of information about how you can support young people who have kind of some mental health issues of any kind. So they're useful organisations to engage with.
Great. All right. So just by way of encouraging as well, those of you who might be listening and you might have not just your children, but maybe you have a few children coming by you, whether it is that they stay by you. Summer is coming up. Everybody doing, summer school and whatnot. And nothing is wrong with that, but I want to encourage, because you might be thinking about doing things like summer school, and so if you can please consider, while you are maybe possibly in your planning stages still, if you can bring in some kind of aspect of mental health inside of what you are doing. Do not leave it out. Yes, the craft and the whatnot is great. Yes, you want to prepare them for CPEA, and that's also good, but it's not just the education, it's not just the physical and the technical know-how. You want to encourage the full child to develop, because we have not been focusing on the holistic development. That is why the truth is that we have had a lot of the issues that we are now seeing. All right, parting words, Nigel, before we tie up.
I am, through the Conference of Churches, trying to help we're looking at seeing what guidance we provide for our young people in schools as well, which is important, because I think just preparing and equipping young people to cope with that gives them resilience for all of these issues that are going to come up in the future. And so just being able to educate more people really in some of the emotional aspects of life is so important.
All right, and how to cope with it. All right, great. So we are going to see you again. Thank you so much for coming. It was a wonderful chat. It was refreshing. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, so until we chat again, that's next week, Friday, God's will. I trust that you'll have a really great rest of your day and a good weekend. Take care of your entire health, but definitely do not neglect your mental health. Do what you need to do. If you need to reach out and you may have a question, then you can definitely send it to us on our Facebook page and the Catholic Diocese of St. George's. You can just check out the program right there. You can put in a comment, put in a question. We'll definitely be able to get back to you with a response. All right? God bless you. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.
everybody. My name is David Hopkins. I'm here with you, inviting you to Trinity Sunday at Lassages playing field. My simple question is this. The 4th of June is Trinity Sunday, right? What is happening on Trinity Sunday in Grenada?
A massive celebration at Lassages playing field.
To be honest, I heard it announced. I heard the bishop talk about it. I think maybe it's similar. I attended last year. Last year was in the stadium, so where all different Catholic churches, they gather in one central space for a day of mass and fellowship and everything. And will you be there? And that's next week Sunday. I plan to be there. Yes, I'll be there.
I do know there is a big celebration where the entire church in Grenada, Carriacou and Pitimatic is celebrating the Feast of the Holy Trinity. I might be there because that's the weekend prior to my birthday, so I might just be celebrating with the diocese on that day.
Trinity Sunday.
Yes.
Bashment. Yes, of course. Our youths will be in participation. So we'll be there.
The preparation is going fine. We're excited for the date and we're hoping that everything goes well.
Will you be at Lassages on the 4th of June?
I will.
What is happening there?
Trinity Sunday, we'll be celebrating Trinity Sunday. I am excited because as a Catholic, the Trinity is very, very important to us.
Some of the happiest memories that I have of these years in Grenada are about the times when we came together. We came together as church and we had a wonderful time. COVID stopped that, but we're coming back together again. Guess what? We are coming together on Trinity Sunday because we want all of us to know we are children of the Trinity, this God who is one and many, this God who is 3 in 1 and 1 in 3. We are coming together to celebrate our unity as a Catholic diocese, baptized into one Lord, one Spirit, one baptism, one faith. So I'm inviting you to join us. We're coming together, first of all, as we always do as Catholics, for Mass. And then after Mass, guess what? We are going to have an exposition of talent. People coming to share their gifts, people coming who have been practicing for quite a while. They've auditioned and they
Going through a storm, but I won't go down. I hear your voice, rhythm of the wind to call me
Let's have a
out.
great time. Let's have a time to remember. And let's have a time where we leave Lassages proud to be Grenadian and Catholic and willing to work together to make that even more of a reality. God bless you. It's free to come in. It's not like the concert, it's free to come in.